The fluorescent lights of the Lossell circuit catch the edge of a new silhouette in the pit lane, one that doesn't quite fit the traditional mold of a Grand Prix rider. For years, the MotoGP paddock was a closed ecosystem, a sanctuary for those who had climbed the traditional ladder of Moto3 and Moto2. But tonight, the air is thick with a different kind of electricity. The rumors that began as whispers in the WorldSBK motorhomes have finally materialized into a reality that many insiders deemed impossible. Toprak Razgatlioglu, the man who redefined the physics of a production-based motorcycle, isn't just visiting. He is here to claim a seat. But this isn't just a rider changing classes, it is a fundamental clash of philosophies. On one side, you have the most sophisticated prototype machines ever built, worth millions of dollars and tuned to the millimeter. On the other, you have a rider whose style is built on chaos, late-breaking violence, and a refusal to acknowledge the traditional limits of a front tire. The announcement that Toprak would join the Prima Pramac Yamaha project for 2026 sent a shockwave through the industry. Why would a man who had just conquered the WorldSBK world with BMW, a man who had brought a German giant to its knees in celebration, risk everything to jump onto a Yamaha M1 that has struggled for years? Some call it bravery, others call it a career-ending gamble. But as the garage door lifts and the scream of a brand-new V4 engine echoes off the concrete walls, one thing becomes clear. The Stoppie King is no longer content with being the best in one world. He wants to dismantle the legends of the premier class. And yet, as he prepares to mount the bike, a lingering question remains. Can the man who makes a bike dance survive in a world where the computers demand perfection? No one inside the paddock expected what would unfold next. And it would change everything for him, his team, and the entire championship narrative. To understand why Toprak Razgatlioglu is the most feared newcomer in a decade, you have to understand the violence of his craft. Most riders treat the entry to a corner like a surgical procedure, smooth, calculated, and fluid. Toprak treats it like a street fight. Since his early days on the Yamaha R1 in WorldSBK, he became a viral sensation for his stoppies. Entering a corner at over 100 miles per hour with the rear wheel 2 feet in the air, balanced solely on the contact patch of a single tire. But behind the visual spectacle lay a terrifying technical advantage. By loading the front end of the bike so aggressively, Toprak could break meters later than anyone else on the grid. He wasn't just stopping the bike, he was using the weight transfer to pivot the machine in a way that defied the chassis geometry. It was this front-wheel dance that allowed him to systematically dismantle dynasties, ending the 6-year reign of Jonathan Rea and eventually taking BMW to heights they hadn't seen in decades. Inside the BMW garage, engineers spoke of super concessions, special frame adjustments designed specifically to withstand the sheer force Toprak applied to the headstock of the M1000RR. He was a rider who forced the machine to adapt to him, rather than the other way around. But as he walks away from the comfort of the production-based paddock, he is leaving behind the Pirelli tires that allowed him this margin of error. In the world of MotoGP, the laws of physics are governed by a different master, the Michelin front tire. And reports from early simulations suggest that the very style that made him a god in WorldSBK might be his greatest weakness here. But behind that calm expression, pressure was building fast. The transition from WorldSBK to MotoGP is often described as moving from a sports car to a fighter jet, but for Toprak, the primary obstacle isn't the power, it's the rubber. In WorldSBK, the Pirelli tires are known for being communicative. They give a rider a long, progressive warning before they let go. Toprak thrived in that gray area, sliding the front into the apex with a level of feel that bordered on the supernatural. In MotoGP, the Michelin front tire is a different beast entirely. It is a masterpiece of grip, but it operates on a knife edge. There is no gray area. 1 millimeter too much pressure, 1 degree too much lean, and the front end tucks without a whisper of warning. This is the Michelin Wall that has broken the spirits of countless WorldSBK crossovers. According to insiders, early data from Toprak's private tests showed a worrying trend. His signature, late-braking, maneuver was generating so much heat in the Michelin carcass that the tire pressure was spiking almost instantly, leading to a loss of grip that even he couldn't save. There is a technical rift growing among the pundits. Some believe Toprak's muscle memory is too deeply ingrained to change. He has spent 10 years perfected the art of saving a slide on a Pirelli. In MotoGP, if you're trying to save it, you've already crashed. Some mechanics claim something felt off during the initial setup, that the bike felt too stiff for a rider who likes the chassis to flex and move under him. Yet the real turning point happened away from the cameras, in a closed-door meeting where Toprak realized that to conquer MotoGP, he might have to kill the rider he used to be. But what the paddock discovered next shocked everyone. The political landscape of MotoGP in 2026 is a tinderbox, and Toprak is the match. Yamaha, desperate to return to the glory days of Valentino Rossi and Jorge Lorenzo, made a radical decision. They abandoned their traditional inline-4 engine configuration, a staple of the brand for decades, in favor of a high-powered V4. This wasn't just a technical change, it was a desperate lure to bring Toprak into the fold. By joining Prima Pramac Yamaha, Toprak isn't just joining a satellite team, he is joining the lead project for the new V4 engine. The pressure is immense. Yamaha has invested tens of millions into this prototype, and they have pinned their hopes on a rider who has never raced a Grand Prix. Within the garage, whispers began spreading about the difficulty of the transition. The M1 V4 is a beast of aerodynamics. It features winglets and ground effect fairings that require the bike to stay perfectly level to generate downforce. Toprak's natural style, making the bike dance and wheelie into corners, directly contradicts the way a modern MotoGP bike wants to be ridden. If the bike is in the air, the aero isn't working. If the aero isn't working, the bike won't turn. It is a fundamental war between a man's instinct and a machine's design. Some insiders claim that Yamaha engineers were visibly stressed during the first shakedown, watching their multi-million-dollar aero package being rendered useless by Toprak's wild inputs. However, the twist that followed would change the championship narrative entirely. While the technical battle rages, the psychological war is even more intense. The MotoGP grid is currently dominated by one name, Marc Marquez. After his resurgence on the Ducati, Marquez has reclaimed his spot as the king of late braking. But in Toprak, he faces a mirror image of his younger self. Both riders share a win or crash mentality. Both are willing to put their bikes in gaps that don't exist. The prospect of a Toprak versus Marquez duel is the most anticipated event of the 2026 season. On paper, Marquez has the advantage of 13 years of Michelin experience. He knows exactly how to manipulate the tire to the brink of disaster. But Toprak has something Marquez hasn't seen in years: total unpredictability. Toprak doesn't follow the standard MotoGP lines. He enters corners from angles that shouldn't be possible, often squaring off the turn in a way that leaves defenders vulnerable to a block pass. A former MotoGP mechanic recently noted that Toprak is the first rider since the young Marc Marquez who doesn't care about the hierarchy. He won't give Marquez the respect that many of the younger riders do. Rumors suggest that in the safety commission meetings, veteran riders have already expressed concern about Toprak's aggressive entry speeds. But for the fans, this is the main event. It is a clash of two masters of the limit. Yet, as the first official test in Valencia approached, the hype met a sobering reality. When the 2026 preseason test began in Valencia, the eyes of the world were on box number 88. But as the day progressed, the timing screens told a confusing story. Toprak wasn't at the top. In fact, he was languishing in the bottom half of the field, nearly 1.5 seconds off the pace set by the leaders. The critics were immediate. He's too old, the bike is too different, he can't handle the tires. But behind the scenes, a different story was being told. His manager, the legendary Kenan Sofuoğlu, later revealed a detail that the media had missed. Yamaha had only brought one functional prototype of the new V4 frame to Valencia. There were no spares. If Toprak crashed the bike in pursuit of a fast lap, the entire development program for the winter would be halted. Toprak, the man known for his reckless abandon, was forced to ride with handcuffs. He was instructed by Yamaha management to avoid any risks, meaning no stoppies, no extreme lean angles, and no limit testing. He was essentially a high-speed data logger. The frustration was visible on his face. He looked like a caged animal. This reserved version of Toprak was a decoy, a necessary evil to protect the project. But this was only the beginning of a far bigger storm, as the real Toprak began to emerge during the night sessions. As the testing moved to Sepang, the handcuffs were slowly taken off, and Toprak encountered the true prototype shock. A MotoGP bike is infinitely stiffer than a WorldSBK machine. In SBK, the frame is designed to flex to help the rider find grip at extreme lean. In MotoGP, the stiffness is so high that every bump in the track feels like a hammer blow to the rider's wrists. Toprak began to realize that his physical style of riding, manhandling the bike into position, was exhausting him. In a 45-minute MotoGP race, the physical toll is 40% higher than in a WorldSBK sprint. According to insiders, Toprak had to completely overhaul his training regime, focusing on core stability over raw strength to keep the bike stable at 220 miles per hour. Furthermore, the ride height devices, the buttons riders must press to lower the bike's rear end for acceleration, were a foreign language to him. In the heat of a battle with riders like Jorge Martin or Pecco Bagnaia, forgetting to engage the device for even one exit could mean losing 5 positions on the straight. The complexity of the cockpit was overwhelming. He wasn't just a rider anymore, he was a pilot managing a computer. Some believed the mental load would eventually crack him. Yet the real turning point happened when he finally stopped fighting the bike and started listening to it. The 2026 season is being billed as a transition year for Toprak, but those who know him understand he doesn't have a learning gear. The internal conflict within the Pramac garage is palpable. Yamaha wants data, Toprak wants trophies. There is a growing tension between the Japanese engineers who prefer a methodical, step-by-step approach and Toprak's Turkish crew who want to unleash the beast. Rumors suggest that Toprak has already requested a special braking map that bypasses some of the engine braking electronics, allowing him to slide the rear more freely, a request that has reportedly made the Yamaha software team nervous. They fear that his old-school approach will interfere with the delicate balance of the V4's power delivery. But as the championship heads toward the opening round, the narrative is shifting. Toprak isn't just a wildcard anymore. He is a threat to the established order. The social media wars have already begun, with fans of the old guard dismissing him and a new wave of Turkish supporters bringing a level of fervor the paddock hasn't seen since the height of Rossi mania. What happened after the final preseason simulation left even his closest team members stunned. Toprak didn't just match the race pace of the leaders. He did it while using 15% less tire than his teammate. As the sun sets over the desert for the first race of the 2026 season, the Turkish disruptor stands on the grid, no longer an outsider but a central pillar of the MotoGP story. He has successfully navigated the Michelin Wall, tamed the stiff prototype chassis, and survived the political minefield of a factory transition. He is no longer just the Stoppie King from the production paddock. He has evolved. He is a hybrid, a rider who possesses the raw, unrefined aggression of a street racer and the technical precision of a Grand Prix master. Whether he stands on the podium in his first year or spends the season in the gravel trap, one thing is certain: MotoGP will never be the same. The era of smooth and calculated dominance is being challenged by a man who isn't afraid to let the bike dance on the edge of a disaster. The duel with Marc Marquez is no longer a what-if, it is an inevitability. And as the red lights begin to glow, the world waits to see if the man who redefined WorldSBK can truly break the legends of MotoGP. The Stoppie King has arrived, and he's not here to follow the lines, he's here to redraw them.